Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo. And in this episode, we're going to review some parts of Everdell. Now, I'm going to be using the complete collection version of this game with some of the, well, basically, I started with the base game, put a couple expansions in over the years, and then lastly, I should say, I bought the Everdell Complete Collection box along with the Newleaf expansion and the Mistwood expansion. So I'm going to talk about those today specifically. And then I'll help you see if this is the solo game that you are looking for or if this is one that you would rather pass on. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. If you have, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got going on. First of all, this is the main board, comes with the main game. I'm not using the tree because I'm using the Bellfaire expansion. I don't particularly love the tree. I think it was a novelty at its time, but it really kind of made it difficult to see what was going on. So I like the Bellfaire board, and I also love the Bellfaire expansion, to be honest. Over here, we've got the Newleaf expansion. The Newleaf expansion brings in basically a larger tableau of cars to choose from. The other thing it does is it lets you get these passengers, which again are basically more like the kind of goals you saw here with the special and basic goals. So there are yet more of these types of things that you can fulfill, and if you fulfill them at the end of the game, you get those points. The other thing that this brings into play is a ton more cards. So this deck just keeps growing and growing. All right, it's quite large at this point. You know, it really, I'll say this, it dilutes the individual cards so much so they recommend that you don't even use some of the special event cards from the base game that say if you have this card and this card, then you can qualify, because there's a strong chance those cards just won't come up. And that is very true. I've definitely seen that. You know, you're not going to get through a third of this deck now. So they've given you enough special event cards to be able to handle that, no big deal. Okay, and then you've got over here, which is the Mistwood part. And the situation with the Mistwood is it's a complete solo, or I guess you could play two-player situation where it replaces the solo mode in the base game, which was very much kind of like a denial mode and a blocking mode, and it really didn't feel like playing another player. And it replaces it with a fully autonomous opponent, which much more resembles kind of where we've gotten to in this day with regards to solo opponents. So this one has a variety of action cards, which we'll go over in a second, that detail what it's going to do in its turn. It has, so first of all, I really appreciate the fact that right on its little board here, it tells you exactly what you're going to do with the icons. So that makes it a lot easier to handle. And then it gives you a turn summary over here and a little spot, you know, just to kind of organize yourself. Now, unlike the base game solo mode, you're going to be using the cards a little more reliable, or well, I guess it's going to use its own cards in its city more than the original game. So you're going to have to put some space in the table for those to come out. Specifically, you got to be paying attention, like you did in the normal game, to the types of buildings it gets, but also if it has buildings that are open or that have locations to go on them, it'll actually travel to those and use those for points, and you can use them as well. And that's a little different than the base game, because the solo opponent would never use its own cards and would never do anything like that. It's also much more interactive, which we'll see here as I demonstrate after I get a little bit deeper into the game. So I'm going to play a few, maybe a season or so, and get deeper, and then we'll demonstrate it. And so that's about the size of it. So let me go ahead and get into the game, then I'll come back and I'll show you a lot more of how this solo opponent interacts with the regular game. All right. Okay, so we've just transitioned into the spring season. And a couple things. Number one, my cards are off screen over here because there's just too much going on. Number two, the opponent, Mistweave, her cards for her city are just off camera also, but everything else should be visible. So it is her turn. She's going to flip over this card, and when she flips over a card, basically what you do is you take a look at the season that is currently in play for her. She may be on a different season than you. In this case, it's spring. And what it'll do is it'll tell you which action you have to take. And if you can't do any of this action, then you go to this. And if you still can't do any of this, then you do what's down here at the bottom. That's kind of the default action. The card shows how to break ties as far as going around the board. And one of the things that you always note about her is that she never will take a general action space that others can take. She only takes exclusive ones. So this says, fill in this space if at all possible. Well, I can, no problem there. So we put one of her workers right there. That's it. She doesn't get any resources. She doesn't get any points for those things. She completely ignores what's on the cards. She just blocks the space. Okay, so then it comes to me. And the way this game works is this game's a lot about card combos. If you aren't familiar with the game, you're trying to put together certain cards that interact with other ones that can get your resource engine going, if at all possible, or get a point engine going to help you score. Most of the points that you will score come from the city cards you build, and you have a maximum of 15 cards in your city, unless you get something like the main road here, which allows you to put more in there. Or it comes from getting these events and conditions. And the way most of them work, and I'll show you right now, is that if you have a certain type or certain number of buildings built, you can claim the event. So it just happens that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these production green buildings built here. So on my turn, I could claim this event right here, and this will be worth 3 points at the end of the game, which is worth something. This game is actually kind of a... You will probably score somewhere between 70 and 80 points if you're doing well. I'm not so good at the game, so I don't usually score that well, but it seems like that's the kind of score that that you'll be somewhere between that area to win. So 3 points isn't a ton, but these start to add up, and you can't let the opponent get them, because otherwise it's a 3-point swing. So it's very much in this game sort of like a knife fight in a telephone booth. There's a lot of close interactions here and there, and you're trying to make sure that you can do everything you can to prevent them from scoring. Okay, so I just took my turn, and I only have 2 workers right now, so that was one of them just to claim that. And you see, wow, that's very few turns because you don't have a lot of workers. Well, workers are only necessary if you want to play them on a card. Most of the other turns you're going to be doing, especially when you have your engine going, is going to be card play. And so in the very beginning of the game, when you start off, it seems like, wow, this is going to go really fast. But the seasons go a lot longer as you go through, because you're going to get a few more workers, but you're also going to play more cards. Now, when you're playing with Bellfaire, you actually do not get one of the 6 workers you normally have. You only get 5, because Bellfaire comes with these little powers. And for instance, my butterfly power here says I start the game with 12 cards in my hand instead of the 8, and my maximum hand limit is 12. So that apparently is enough of an advantage that I should not get that extra worker. Hence, I don't. All right, so I played my turn. Let's go ahead and execute another one of their turns. Looks like they're supposed to take the unique space for all 3 of the little wood here. So they're going to take that space this time. Okay, so it comes back to me. Now, there are ways to build cards without actually paying for anything, and it has to do with the unique relationship between certain cards. So for instance, this main road, I could block this little spot off saying I've used it and build any common critter. And I'm going to do that right now. So one of the things that Newleaf opens up is additional card combos, and these little golden leaf tokens, which you can use a maximum of 3 of in the game. And they're just like the doors that came with the base game. They're just more of them, and they're a little bit more flexible than the other ones. So I can play any common creature that I want, and the common creature that I'd like to play is the gardener. So what that lets me do is it lets me activate 2 different production buildings, which is what the leaf represents in my hand. So why not? So I can activate, let's do the farm, for instance. Actually, no, let's do the general store. So I get 2 of these berries. And then the other one I'm going to activate is this card here that says you may pay up to 2 resources to get an equal amount of some other 2 resources. Well, that's really good because some of the resources are harder to get than others. For instance, pebbles. Pebbles are, they're in shorter supply, I guess you could say. So I'm definitely going to pay 1 of these for a pebble. And then I could also pay 1 for a twig, or a stick, which is usually easier to get, but I've got cards that would benefit from both of those. Maybe I shouldn't. Let's see. So when you play cards in this game, you can play them from any tableau of space out here, or from the cards in your hand. The cards in your hand are just reserved so that only you can play them. So what I think I will do is instead, I will get another pebble, because there's a couple of cards out here that have a lot of pebbles. So, like I said, it's harder to get those. All right, so that is what I did. Now we will flip over another card to see what Mistweave's going to do. So, or Nightweave, pardon me. All right, so this time Nightweave is going to play a card from the meadow and then place Nightweave there, blocking it. So we roll this 12-sided die because I'm using the Newleaf expansion, and it says 7. So I count through here and I get to card number 7. So it's going to play the Ranger. The Ranger has a specific symbol on it. So now, does it qualify for any events yet? No, it does not, but it might be coming into that spot soon. All right, so anyway, we place them there. Now, the one thing I'm not doing, which does come with this expansion, is there's a ton of interactive bonus, both tactical event cards and strategic event cards that happen throughout the game, plus different personalities and all these other things to really add some legs, so to speak, to the Mistweave expansion here, or the Mistwood expansion. And Nightweave does some really cool things depending on what you're doing there, but I did not want to put those in there because I'm just getting used to the system. But just note that there's a lot of content in the solo mode that really adds to the replayability and the different kinds of things you can do. So anyway, that's that. My turn again. What I will do now, I think, so I still have a lot of cards, I still have resources. Let's continue to play cards. Let's go ahead and get this card in play right here. Where's that greenhouse? That's what I was going to do. I'm going to play this greenhouse. Now the greenhouse says it may share a space with a farm. So that means instead of having to use this as one of my 15 cards, this one will not count as a 15th card. It'll share a space. So the two together count as a 15 card. And the greenhouse costs 2 resin and 1 wood. So you're always trying to, oops, I don't have the wood. Nuts. That's right, I changed my mind. All right, so before I play this card, let me see if there's any good way for me to get wood based on other cards, because I changed my mind on that. So probably the best thing to do, I don't want to use my last worker if I can avoid it to go out there, but maybe I have to. Unfortunately, the nice wood spots have been blocked. So I guess I could just do the 2 wood and 1 card spot, and maybe that's just the best thing to do. So we'll go here, and I'll get 2 wood and 1 card. Now I can take the card from any of these available cards out here, or I can top deck the thing. And you'd like to think that I would be able to make a good choice from what's out here. So there's a lot of things that go into this game when you're trying to choose cards. Number 1, the building type. Because I told you before, most of the points are scored by getting and building certain types of buildings. So in this case, I've got plenty of production buildings already. So I don't know if I really want to get another production building, so I should steer clear of those. However, I don't have any of these building with this little purple paw over here. And so maybe that makes sense to do that, and then with that I can start to work on some of those actions. Or I could do one of those flower ones that usually gives you more points. But in the case of what I'm looking at right now, this one right here allows me to get 4 points if I have 3 and 4, or I just saw something. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. That greenhouse that I wanted to play, that greenhouse is another production one. So this right here will get me 6 points. So I need to set up for that kind of combination. And I think I can do that. So I'm going to just take one of these for later to move the turn along here. We'll grab the cemetery. Nah, I don't like that one. I keep changing my mind here. All right, Chapel. I'm not going to waste any more time on it. Chapel, and we will go ahead and flip this over, and it comes out the City Hall. Okay, now back to Nightweave. Nightweave is in spring. Nightweave is going to play the top card from her hand. Okay, so she has a hand of cards here. Top card ends up being another production card. So that would be her 5th card. So that now puts even more pressure on me to get this going, because if she flips one over that says special event, I'm in trouble. The other thing that she just revealed is a train card. So what she's going to do is she's going to take the top point card here, and it's going to be this one. Both are worth 5, and she's going to discard the other. All right, so what that means is that at the end of the game, she's going to get 5 points for that. She jumped on that train before I did. So I need to find a good way to get some more berries, and maybe the best thing to do is to build this resin refiner. So I go ahead and I'm going to pay for this. That is going to be a, oh no, that doesn't give me berries. That gets me that gets me resin, but I need 2 berries in order to get that 6-pointer before she does. So what I will do is see, none of those help. The shopkeeper could do the trick, but that doesn't really help me either, because I'll be spending those berries. All right, so the other thing I could do, well, I'm not going to spend, so in the Newleaf expansion, they give you these tickets which you can flip over to move one of your workers from one space to another. Not a good idea to move off this because I need those points. But this could help me move to that other card, which I want to use. Oh boy, got myself in a little bit of a pickle here. Let's see. Maybe the best thing to do would be to do this one that says copy. No, because you got to play it. Move one of your deployed workers to a new location. Ah. All right. But I don't have the dungeon. Okay, for pity's sake, I've got myself in a pickle. So the choices, as you can see in this game, are not completely just simple, because you're always trying to figure out how can I get done what I want to get done with all the cards that I have. And there's usually a way to figure that out. If you spend the time and try to think about it, there's some real, it's tactical. It's certainly a tactical game, because you're always trying to do very similar things, maximize your situation. But there's a lot of good tactical choices here. So it looks like I'm going to be somewhat stumped. And probably the best thing to do would be to play this tea house, because then I can give my opponent a card to gain what I want. All right, so that's, see, I figured it out. All right, so 2 of these sticks and 2 resin allows me to then give the opponent a card. Now, when I give the opponent a card, in this case, she also gets a point. So it's just one of those things for the solo rules. And I'm going to give her the, let's see, probably the photographer. And every time you do that, you shuffle the deck, because it kind of randomizes what the person does. And the reason is sometimes you know that they're going to have to discard a top deck of the card, so that takes away some of that gaminess to which I like. Okay, then I gain what I need. I need this berry. All right, and I get to draw a card. And because I've already looked through everything here, let's get a top deck here. Another lamplighter. Well, I already have a lamplighter, but it's a common critter, so you could play that twice if I wanted to. Okay, let's see what they do. Now, all right, they are going to play a card from the meadow and put out Nightweave. Well, Nightweave's already out there, so that's not going to happen. Unless I have to look at the up, but that might be a situation where you move Nightweave, but I'm going to look that up. Let's pretend like I can't do that, just because I don't want to slow anything down. In this case, it says play a card from the meadow, and then discard the top card of her hand and get a point. All right, so we're going to play a card from the meadow. So we're going to roll this. That's a 7. That is already there. So since she's already there, we go around the clockwise order here, and because that's what the tiebreaker says, she'll go ahead and play this Lookout, which is one that I could potentially interact with. If it was open, it is not open, but she might interact with it. And then she discards the top card of her hand, which was not the one that I gave her. Doesn't really matter to me too much, but she gets a point for that. All right, now comes my move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this ticket to move one of my workers to this spot right here. And I have the 5 cards I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus I have to play 2 berries to do that. So that was a big move because 6 points is a lot. Plus I don't have to worry about her getting it, and she's already got 5, so she was going to probably get that if I didn't do something soon. Okay, moving to the next card for her, it says play the top card from her hand. So she's going to go ahead and do that, and this was the photographer that I gave her. And this is a different icon, so she's getting some more of those things out there now. And then also it says take a train ticket. So she's going to take this 9, which is unfortunate because I haven't gotten a train ticket yet, and I need to look at that and see what I can do. So you're kind of getting a flavor for what's going to happen. Now, eventually what happens is you run out of things you want to do or can do, and you switch seasons. And she will do the same thing too. And when you switch seasons, you do some reset of the board itself. Whoops, speaking of reset. You do some reset of the board, but you also will get more workers, you get more cards, some things will change. In the case of Nightweave, she might get some events. And so she does some different things, you do some things, you get some more workers, and it kind of moves the game to the next phase. But each player can be at different phases in the game depending on where they want to be, can be. So you can kind of move to the summer before or after Nightweave. She can do the same thing. She can move before or after that situation. So anyway, either way, the game kind of keeps going like this until you get through all 4 seasons. And then when you get through all 4 seasons, you will sum up all of the cards and the points that you have in your tableau here. You'll sum up all the special things that you've gotten, the events, etc. And then there's other certain cards that let you score extra points for different things, depending on the cards you have, etc. So there's a lot of those different things. There's even some goals where whoever's got the most critters, for instance, would get 6 points. Second most would get 3 for that community event over there. And then if you have the tickets that you've gotten and you've made those things work, they score. So there's a lot of different things, but ultimately it's just tons and tons of card combinations to basically help you score and win the game. And even at the end, you can kind of discard certain cards to play your stuff on here, and then ultimately get, the points for that. So lots of different things going on, but it's all the same kind of flavor. All right. So let me go ahead and go back up and tell you what I think about this. I'm going to tell you about what I think about the Newleaf expansion, the new solo mode, and also kind of this entire box all wrapped into one, the complete collection, and what I think about the experience. All right. Okay, folks, so there you have it. That is what it's like to play solo with the Mistwood expansion, with the Bellfaire, with the base game, and with the Newleaf expansion. Now, a couple things I want to mention first. Is there a value in getting the complete collection box if you don't have it? Yes, there is. As far as I'm concerned, that is a very, very valuable thing to do for a couple of reasons. Number one is this book. I love the fact that all the rules are contained in this large, complete manual. And the reason being is because there's so many different expansions to this game, it gets difficult to figure out how they all interact and how you set up and do this and do that and that and this. This book really makes it easy and approachable to do that. So if you don't get it, at least download this complete guide so you figure out how to play everything. Number two, I would say that the inserts and the storage is very practical and helps you set this game up a lot quicker than if you have it in 5 different boxes. So I do think there's a quality of life improvement. It's not just about a nicety. I think that if you want to get this game to the table quicker, the box is going to help you. Also, I do think that these stickers, even though it took me literally 4.5 hours probably, or 4 hours to put them on all the pieces. They do make the game look a lot nicer, and that's very helpful. The storage, like I said, is really helpful. You know, you've got all your components in something like this. The boards sit nicely. There's a nice card holder that fits all the cards if they're sleeved, at least with the economically viable, cheaper sleeves. I'm not sure about thick ones, but I still think they would probably fit. Either way, I think that is just a very, very nice thing to have. So I would recommend it if you have a lot of these components and a lot of the expansions and you want to do that. All right, so what do I think of the Newleaf expansion? So Newleaf is more of the same, but that's a good thing. If you like that, if you like this game, it's a good thing. And when I say more of the same is, it's more cards, it's more two more places to go that give you the ability to get more cards and more visitors, which are basically circumstantial special events that you can use to gain more points. So really in Newleaf, there's not a ton of difficult or unique mechanics. You're just kind of adding additional content to the game, which I think is good if you have the base game and you are looking for more of the good stuff that's coming in this game. So that's what I think of Newleaf. It's pretty easy to learn. Once you've learned it, it's very simple to remember it. There's not a lot of nitnoid things and little intricacies and such. It's definitely on the probably the simplest of the expansions, to be honest, that you roll in here, because there are no movement of paths, there are no special abilities, there are no using one worker or the other. It's probably the simplest one. And so if you were going to pick that one up and just wanted to keep the flavor of the base game but not, you know, put a brand new mechanic in there, I just don't think the train and that stuff and the tickets are all that new, so to speak, from a standpoint of like, wow, that's a whole nother thing I got to understand. It gives you more flexibility, gives you more variety, gives you a few more ways to score points. The Mistweave expansion, I think, is an absolute essential expansion for anybody who wants to play, I said Mistweave, Mistwood, pardon me, Nightweave, Mistwood, I'm sorry about that. But anybody who wants to play Everdell solo really needs to get that expansion. That expansion makes this game just completely better from a solo standpoint. And I have almost sold Everdell before this because the solo that comes in the box is just not that exciting. It's very I mean, it doesn't feel like you're playing against a second player. It feels like you're basically working a completely different puzzle, and it does not give you a great feel for the game, because every time you build, it builds. It gets maximum points for things. It's almost like it maxes out everything, and it takes the achievements really fast from the basic events and the special events. It makes it very tough to get those. When you're playing with the Pearlbrook expansion, it feels like it's impossible to best it. I mean, I'm sure there's ways, but it's so strong because it grabs those things that you don't get. It really forces you to be as efficient as possible and as quick as possible, having really only one strategy you can play, which is just bolting right out of the gate and trying to maximize everything as fast as possible. And I don't particularly like that. I've kept the game because I enjoyed the Spire Crest. I really enjoyed Bellfaire expansions, but I never really got to really out to the table playing it very often because I like it, but it was just like, man, I got crushed again. Well, the Nightweave opponent completely fixes that. It's like playing against a normal Automa, a second player. It does very well. There are 4 or 5, I think there's 5 difficulty levels. Now I was able to beat the tame level by 6 points. And I would say at this point in the game, I'm pretty decent at this game. So I felt pretty good. But this, she drew all these visitor cards, none of which came into play because I was playing on the easy level because I didn't know what to expect. But, one of those come into play, we would have had a tie. 2 of them, and then she would have beat me. So there's definitely some scalability, which I don't think the other one really, I know it had 3 levels, but I just didn't feel like it was, it just seemed very swingy. Anyway, so Mistwood is great. From a solo expansion, I think it's essential. I think the Nightweave character plays very well. Understanding the cards is really easy because thank goodness, this right here, it makes it work. A player aid with the icons on it is just so helpful. And I really appreciate that. You look at the cards, you immediately could refer to there. You didn't have to memorize, you didn't have to hold a book open and everything else. And that's great. It'll help you, I think, when you sit down to play this game after a while, it's going to make it easy to do so. And that's why I think, again, it's very essential. So I've had a really good time with enjoying the new solo player here. I think it's awesome. And just from an overall standpoint, my one comment about Everdell. By itself, I think if I didn't have any of the components, my recommendation or my thought would be that this game is very expensive to get to a level where it becomes really good. And what I mean by that is the base game by itself had this solo puzzle in it, and I didn't like it that much, but I kept it because it was like I had a feeling like it could get better. And then the first Pearlbrook expansion came out, and it didn't make it any better for me. In fact, that's an expansion I'm not sure I'll ever play with again. Maybe I'll try it once and see what Mistwood does for it, but I just didn't like the way that one felt. It added some new content, new cards, which was cool, but it also made it really tough. You had to rush right to try to get those achievements, and that was tough. That really kind of made the game again into a sprint. Then I was able to get the second two expansions that came out, Bellfaire and Spirecrest, both of which are fantastic, but I think Bellfaire is essential from the standpoint it gives you asymmetric player powers more than anything else. Yeah, the extra couple of cards are cool and this and that, and it expands things, but that was, to me, really something that really enhanced the game. All right, the Spirecrest was kind of an expansion all in itself. It's the one that I'd say really adds a bunch of new mechanics to the game which weren't there in the first place, because it adds different animal bonuses and different weather effects and this whole travel mechanism, and it really changes the constraint of the game from being just a combo builder to being something that also has all this other stuff that you can do. And so that's enjoyable. And then I talked to you about Newleaf. Newleaf is pretty easy to get into. It's more of the same. And then there's Mistwood. The fact is, though, that you're going to be spending hundreds of dollars to get to all this stuff. And my recommendation would be, you got to think to yourself if it's going to be worth it all. It is worth it if you've been walking along the path like I have, okay? Because there is a lot of good stuff here. But if I didn't have this game at all, I would probably buy the base game, Mistwood, and then Bellfaire, and see what happens. Now, that would still be a fairly solid investment. That's going to be well over $100, probably 120, 150 bucks. That's a lot of money for a card combo builder game like this. I like the game, but I'm not sure I like it $150 worth like that. Now, I really enjoy playing the game because I have all the content, but I'm just saying the value here seems to be a big up and down kind of situation, because this game by itself is not that complex. It's pretty tactical. It's enjoyable. You have some puzzles you can figure out, like I showed you in the video, where you're trying to agonize on how am I going to get what I need done so I can get this before they do. And that's fun. But overall, when you look at all the money you have to invest in it to get what is, I'd say much more than a complete game, but I'm saying you really probably have to get 2 or 3 expansions here, the Mistwood and something else, to make this game worth it from a solo standpoint. That's a pretty big price tag, in my opinion. So you got to think about that. If you don't have this game, there is a big cost of entry, and I would definitely say that you should never buy the base game for the solo at all. Not good, just from that standpoint alone. But if you are going to take the plunge, the Mistwood really does provide a rich and very good solo experience. You know, and I told you I haven't played yet with all the other things it adds, but it adds a ton of content. And I think that's really cool. And I would say that maybe with that ton of content and the base game, you could dip your toe into it and feel pretty good. But the only thing is I really like the asymmetric player powers you get from Bellfaire. And so those would be my three, if I was going to do something, that would be the essential ones. I'd get the base, Bellfaire, and Mistwood, and then say that's it. Now, if I really liked it, then you could go to the next one. Whether you want to add more content, you could go to the Newleaf, or if you want to add a completely different mechanic than what is it, Spirecrest, I think it is. There's so many names. I'm sorry. I've just got there's a lot of content here, and I haven't played Spirecrest in a while, so I hope that's what it's called. Pretty sure it is. Anyway, so that would add a whole new mechanic, and I'd probably skip the Pearlbrook. I don't think there's enough there unless you just absolutely love this game. Then yeah, there's another mechanic. There's another set of resources. There's some adornments, which are bonuses. I mean, there's cool concepts there, but I don't think that that's an essential one by any means. So I really hope that this was an informative playthrough for you, and this was an informative session. It's a lot to shell out, so now you have some information. You can figure out if it's for you or not. Either way, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And whatever you decide to play in the future, I hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy, everybody.